All right, so let's start this broadcast with some breaking inputs that have just come in, where the Russian strikes on the southern Ukrainian city of Odesa have left tens of thousands of residents without heat or electricity. And according to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the latest attack has affected at least about 160,000 people, with 13 schools, a kindergarten and several hospitals also without power. Now, Zelensky said in a statement that the escalation has come after the conclusion of the Russia-US talks in Saudi Arabia. To give us more updates in terms of what is happening at this moment in Ukraine, we are joined by WION's Anas Malik, who's joining us live from Kiev for more on the story. Anas, tell us a bit about what the situation is like on the ground in Odesa after the Russian assault.
Well, in the southern city, port city of Odesa, what we see is that about 160 plus drones were fired. That's what the Ukrainian military says, and out of which 106 were intercepted. Now, these drones were mainly targeting the heat and electricity supplies of the country or of the region. The governor of Odesa has said that at least 4 people have been injured. That's what he has confirmed. What we also know is that the people have been asked to exercise cautions in the run-up to the 3-year anniversary of the takeover of or the Russian aggression against Ukraine. Now, what we also understand is that Ukraine has also went on to carry out its drone attacks, which the Russian military says were also intercepted. Now, it is also pertinent to mention the fact that Odesa, which is next to the Black Sea, and at one point it was the hub of the grain operations. That city has been targeted time and again by the Russian side, something that the Ukrainian side has been alleging Russia for long. The Russian side says that it is targeting quote-unquote military installations, whereas reality on the ground might differ to what the Russian side would have to say. Saleh?
Interesting. Now, considering that this is an attack that has happened in the immediate aftermath of the talks between the Russians and the Americans that took place in Riyadh, give us a sense of what the mood is like within Ukraine, the aftermath of the talks that concluded in Riyadh, and also the fact that this attack has happened on the power and other infrastructure facilities in Ukraine. Is there a message that Russia is trying to send out?
Well, last question first. I think with the onset of winters, in fact, the temperature soaring up to -10 here in the capital city of Kyiv. Now, while I'm talking to you, it's -3. The attacks against heat and electricity installations are actually targeted at inflicting that damage to civilian or to that civilian infrastructure that is imperative to continue daily operations. That is number one. I think the second, which you mentioned rightly, that these attacks come in the backdrop or hours after the talks had concluded. We have to keep in mind that Keith Kellogg, the U.S. Special Representative for Russia and Ukraine, has just arrived here in Kyiv a short while back, and he is expected to meet President Zelensky. Now, President Zelensky had cancelled that Saudi Arabia trip when he landed at UAE over the weekend. He was supposed to travel to Saudi Arabia, but sources in the presidential palace say that President Zelensky had called it off because, quote-unquote, he did not want it to give, quote, legitimacy to the talks that were happening on Ukraine without Ukraine, unquote. That is the reason he had called it off. Largely, there's a sense of betrayal within the Ukrainian public here. I've been here in Ukraine since yesterday. In this morning I got to Kyiv, and more so in the train with people I've been talking to, while they were hopeful that this solution or this situation might just end up in Ukraine's favor earlier, before the 4th of November, but things have taken a drastic turn. And as I said, they feel a sense of betrayal that is coming in towards them from the American side.
It's interesting that you speak about the sense of betrayal which the Ukrainians have been expressing. The fact that the Russians and the Americans are talking to each other without the Ukrainians being part of those discussions. Is there a sense within Ukraine that a deal could in fact be struck between the Russians and the Americans, and the Ukrainians may not be a part of a peace deal?
That is a fear. That fear remains. I think that is the actual reason why the Ukrainian side have been saying that any talks on Ukraine without Ukraine is not feasible, is not doable, and is something that will not be acceptable. That is the reason the Ukrainian side has been asking for security guarantees. But in the broader context, they also understand that there is a scarcity of resources. The money is not flowing in. The arms are not flowing in as they were during the Biden administration. What the other part of the problem would be the domestic politics as to how it pans out. In case of any acceptance or any deal that would go inherently against the constitution of Ukraine, which has clearly demarcated the borders, President Zelensky or his team or the office of the president would largely be in a lot of trouble, because anything short of regaining territory as to what it was before the 24th of February 2022 would be seen as a loss, or would be seen as a loss on the part of Ukraine, something that the Ukrainian people are not accustomed to and are not ready to accept in the larger context.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Anas Malik, for joining us from Kiev and getting us all those updates there. We'll of course come back to you as this story develops. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.